So, today I want to talk about some approaches that you might use when talking to your children about this issue. And the first thing that I would do if I had a child that I was speaking with is to ground them in the neutrality of their physical circumstances. This is to say, their physical circumstances are a neutral condition that they are grappling with. It's the way that we move through the world. It's the conditions through which we meet and interact with the world. I interact with the world at the height of 5'3". It's not a feeling. I don't feel 5'3". I notice that I am 5'3" when I have to reach for something that I cannot reach. So it is something that I notice, and our physical circumstances necessarily create limits in our lives. So it creates conditions that you have to deal with. Our physical circumstances are neutral. To notice the organization of our bodies is to notice the form and functionality that we have. Just like on the scientific classification of organisms, all of those organisms are classified according to form and function, whether an organism is a fungi or a plant or an animal. These are classifications based on form and function and organization. So to notice how human beings are organized, it is a neutral, non-judgmental observation. However, gender ideology is classifying humans based on stereotypes. I find this regressive. It is offered as a given. So I would have that child question this given. What is this given actually saying? And I want to show you a graph right here of the quote gender spectrum. That the spectrum is from Barbie to G.I. Joe. And it is saying that humans fall somewhere on this spectrum. So when we think of classification systems, the scientific classification of organisms, when we classify organisms by their form, function, organization, that's useful. That has a great use value. We can differentiate between a toad and a frog. It's useful to have that information. But this classification system right here, the one that goes from Barbie to G.I. Joe, why is it useful? Have your kid answer that question. Why is it useful to have someone classify themselves in a very fixed way along this chart? I personally don't believe in, quote, gender identity. I don't have an innate identity that pertains to any of these stereotypes. I don't identify into this spectrum. I reject this spectrum because I think it's really narrow and regressive, and it puts people in fixed boxes that they don't really have to be in. We all have expressions, and those expressions can change all the time. My way of expressing myself is not really my identity. It's sort of arbitrary. It might be what makes me feel good in the moment, but I don't want anyone to really attach the way that I express myself to my identity. I don't want people to label me in that way. That feels really regressive. What good does it do a child to put themselves somewhere on this chart? So they say they're on the G.I. Joe side. What value does that have? What does that help them discern about themselves? To put someone else on the Barbie side, what does that help them to do? What does that give them in life going forward? How is it useful? Because the more we ask that question, the more we see it's really just kind of a narrow, confining box. We all are going to have a lot of these traits. am here sort of expressing myself in kind of feminine ways. I have some jewelry on, I have some makeup on. But what you might not see is I don't shave my body hair. That is considered not very feminine. Or I have very aggressive traits where I'm pretty argumentative and combative and can be very competitive. So these traits are sometimes considered masculine. They're not visible about me, but they are things that I do. They're actions that I do. But I don't think it's really useful to take all of these behavior sets and put them into one of these boxes, because I would rather feel spontaneous and free to express myself how I sort of feel in any given moment, and to change tomorrow if I feel like it. And again, really have them question, what does the word feeling mean? When people say you can feel like a boy or feel like a girl, what is that feeling? As I said earlier, I don't feel 5'3". I just am 5'3", and that condition that I deal with means I might have to get a stool to grab something. Someone who is 6'4" is dealing with a physical circumstance in which they don't have to get a stool as often as I do. Being female presents me with physical circumstances. I might be grappling with my period. I might be grappling with perimenopause or menopause. I might be grappling with endometriosis, hopefully not. But these are physical circumstances that I have to grapple with. But being female itself, it's sort of as neutral as being 5'3". I don't really notice it about myself until I have to deal with it in some kind of physical way, until it interrupts my normal goings on and I'm presented with something physical that I have to deal with. Otherwise, it's not a feeling. So what is this chart saying about feeling like a boy or feeling like a girl? It's really saying that these feelings are based on external expressions, and it's fixing these external expressions into something. Of course, then the problem is that this is then telling kids they have to change their actual physical body because of their preferences of expression. This is very dangerous, ultimately. I'm going to leave this one for here. I'm going to come back to this topic more and more. I have heard from parents that they want to hear how to talk to this with their girls, how to talk to this with their boys. I'm going to get into this. I also want to talk about historical references that we can use. I want to talk about books, science fiction books of the past, like 1984. I'll get into that, how we can use other parts of our culture that are related to this. So how to use other things to relate to dealing with this ideology specifically. So I'm going to come back to this again and again. Thank you so much for watching.